Shabbat Shalom. So everybody knows that according to Halacha, I'm not supposed to work on Shabbos, right? I'm not supposed to work on Shabbos. It's one of the 10 commandments. But rabbis and cantors have jobs that require them to work on Shabbos. Right now, I could construct some sort of legal fiction that says, well, I really get paid for the counseling that I do, and the teaching that I do, and the security stuff that I do, and the fixing of monitors that I do, and and so on and so forth. And the Shabbos stuff I do for free. Okay, but the Chazan only works on Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? So she's not going to like this, but maybe we shouldn't pay her, right? She only works on Shabbos. Now, but
You tell her that.
We'll be able to know whether she watches my sermon. So, how can it be that rabbis and cantors have jobs that require them to work on Shabbos, right? Yeah.
Because you're not performing one of the 39 prohibited items.
Not performing one of the 39 prohibited categories of labor, right? Correct. We'll get there, right? Similar, no, that's exactly the point of the Drasha, right? Similarly, right? I know Orthodox Jews, not on a regular basis, but they're visiting family or something, and they walk 5 miles to get to shul, right? And then 5 miles to get back, right? And my dad, if he were still alive, would say, that's nuts, right? It's much less work to get in a car and drive to shul, right, than to walk to shul for 5 miles, right? But why is it okay to walk to shul 5 miles if you're Orthodox, but not drive to shul, right? Walking is a lot more work than driving, right? So, what? Doesn't create a spark, right? Okay, so you're understanding how this works, right? So now, Montgomery Village Avenue, okay, it may surprise you to know that the speed limit on Montgomery Village Avenue is 35 miles an hour, okay? And I can tell you that I am routinely driving 42, 43 on Montgomery Village Avenue, and cars are zipping by me. They gotta be going 60, 65, right? Because most people consider a speed limit a suggestion and not a requirement, right? I mean, I had a conversation with a colleague, with a congregant, okay, who was furious that he got several speeding tickets on Apple Ridge Road, right? Because they had a speed camera. And I said, I have a suggestion for you if you don't want to get speeding tickets on Apple Ridge Road. Drive the speed limit. And he looked at me as if I was insane, right? Drive the speed, right? So, but imagine going on 270, where again, you may not realize this, the speed limit is 55, okay? Imagine if there was a sign that said, driving too fast is punishable by 2 points and a fine of $500, right? How would that work, right? Every cop sits there and decides, is that too fast or not too fast, right? But I can tell you, as somebody who watches Judge Judy while eating lunch almost every day, okay, that one of the main causes of litigation in front of Judge Judy is agreements that are vague, right? Agreements that are vague. And in order to prevent yourself from winding up in front of Judge Judy, make your agreements not vague, right? So most of us, and this is where well, you shouldn't work on Shabbos, right? But it's more work to walk, that all of that, right? Because again, we live in a voluntaristic society, right? But the Torah doesn't say, if you want to be considered super religious, observe Shabbos, right? It says observe Shabbos, and if you don't observe Shabbos, mot yumat, okay? Mot yumat. What does mot yumat mean? You shall surely be put to death. Okay, if I'm in a situation of potential mot yumat, I want to know what the rules are, right? So the Torah says, the Torah here is very helpful. It says, don't light a fire. Okay, I don't. Okay, now Brian, you point out, right, internal combustion is fire, right? But I mean, Gail's car, not a fire, right? It's electricity, right? Okay, so don't light a fire. Don't gather sticks, okay? I won't ask, but have any of you gathered sticks recently on Shabbos? Okay. How many of you have gathered manna recently on Shabbos? Okay. And don't leave your place. Okay. Now, obviously, that can't mean stay at home. Okay. 3 years ago this Shabbos, it did mean stay at home, right? But generally, what exactly does it mean, don't leave your place? Okay, but, we have this huge body of law that tells you what you can and can't do, right? And as Michael Scheib pointed out, we have 39 categories of prohibited labor, okay? There are 39, they're known in Hebrew as avot melacha, okay? Because first of all, the word melacha doesn't mean work, okay? The word, this is a kind of a tautological definition, right? But the word melacha means something you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, right? That's what it really means in halachic parlance, right? But yeah,
You're not supposed to, for instance, carry. Not supposed to carry. This way, if you're someone else who's scrub and you have leftovers, you can't go to the aluminum foil and tear off a piece. But if you have the stuff from Costco that's pieces of aluminum foil, you can do it because you're not actually tearing.
correct. And the same thing with toilet paper, right? People either have they pre-cut toilet or whatever, right? Because these are the avot melacha, the categories of labor. Okay, but where do these categories of labor come from? Okay, and they come from this week's parsha indirectly. Okay, because this is what I read this morning, right? I read all of these instructions for constructing the tabernacle, right? And then the appointment of Bezalel as the chief engineer, right? You might say the general contractor for the tabernacle. And then what does it say? Ach et shabtotai tishmoru. Right? Nevertheless, you shall observe my Sabbaths. Right now, why does this come in the middle of the construction of the tabernacle? Yeah.
Because they want to make sure that you're not creating anything that would be used in what is forbidden to do on Shabbat is anything that would be used to be creating this tabernacle.
Correct. Anything that is, so the avot melacha are the things that had to be done for creating the tabernacle, right? So this verse does two things. First of all, it says, don't build the tabernacle on Shabbat, right? And second, it says that's right. Any category of labor that had to be done to construct the tabernacle is what you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, right? So you gotta measure and cut to size, right? So measuring and cut to size, you spoke about aluminum foil, right? By the way, why do we call aluminum foil tin foil? It's aluminum. Right. So we talk aluminum foil or toilet paper or a paper towel or whatever, right? We're cutting and tearing to size, or sewing. There was a lot of sewing that went on in the tabernacle, so sewing is not allowed. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head the 39 categories, right? Jacob may know. I don't know the 39. You can't, right, you can't carry, right? Carry things, but obviously it can't mean you can't carry, right? Because if you can't carry, how do you get dressed? Well, forget about bringing your towels, okay? How do you get dressed, right? I mean, because we have an egalitarian marriage, right? Kelly's clothes are in the closet in the bedroom, right? And my clothes are in the bedroom that we don't use on the other side of the house, right? So if you literally can't carry, I can't get dressed, right? Because I can't carry my clothes from the closet, right? If you can't carry, you can't eat, right? Because in a little while, Gail and Wendy are going to get up and they're going to carry whatever we have for kiddush from the kitchen and bring it into the social hall, right? So it can't mean you can't carry. What it means is you can't carry in a public space, right? And that's where we get the eruv from, right? The eruv turns a public space into a semi-private space, right? Essentially what it does is it makes like an HOA, right? It makes your neighborhood kind of like an HOA. Okay, so now, right, I have spoken and taught that in halakha, there's two kinds of law. There's Torah law and there's rabbinic law, right? Are these categories of labor Torah law or rabbinic law? What? Torah law. Who says Torah? Who says rabbinic? Okay. There's no list of 39 avot melacha, right? And those were derived by the rabbis, right? So at first glance, you might say it's rabbinic law, right? But if you said at first glance it's rabbinic law, you would be wrong. Because it's considered Torah law, because rabbinic law means enacted by the rabbis, This was not enacted by the rabbis, it was deduced by the rabbis from something that is in the Torah. Okay, if you want an example of rabbinic law, okay, I'll give you an example about Shabbos. Anybody ever heard the term muktzah? Muktzah. What's muktzah?
Are you saying with an M? Forbidden. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but it's not just forbidding, it's a specific, something that's muktzah is something that you're not allowed to touch on Shabbos. Okay, and the reason that you're not allowed to touch it on Shabbos is because the only usage for it is something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Okay, so writing, right? That's one of the 39 categories. A pen, therefore, is muktzah, right? There's nothing in the Torah that says don't touch a pen on Shabbos, right? But what do you do with a pen? You write with it, right? That's the, I mean, some people clean their ears with it, but generally you write with it, right? Right? Or when there were cassette tapes, we used to fix the cassette tape with it, right? You don't know what a cassette tape is. Right? But right? Yeah. So a pen is muktzah because if you have in your consciousness not to touch it, you won't absent-mindedly pick it up and start writing it, right? So a pen is muktzah, or if you're Orthodox, a car key is muktzah, right? A house key is not muktzah, right? Because if you live in the neighborhood, you can carry your key with you, or if you don't live in the neighborhood, people clip it onto their belt, or they make like a tie tack that's their key or something like that. So a house key is not muktzah, but a car key would be muktzah, right? And so, we have this system, right? And sometimes it seems to make sense, and sometimes it doesn't. I have a lot more, but you know what? I'll, as is often the case, I'll end here. But the point that I want to make, well, I say 2 points. One is that this system has an internal consistency, right? And it's not just, even though, I mean, the Talmud itself says that the laws of Shabbat are a mountain suspended by a thread, okay? Because there's a lot of rabbinic interpretation, but it is considered to be rabbinic interpretation of biblical law and not rabbinic enactment, okay? And so there is this internal, but because of that, there is a difference between biblical and rabbinic law, and rabbinic law is easier to override than biblical law. I mean, I mentioned actually 3 years ago, this Shabbos was the last Shabbos we had in-person services before we shut it down for the pandemic, okay? And it was the same with Shabbat Parah, right? So we read from 2 Sifrei Torah, and at that point already people, I mean, we didn't know a lot, right? So people were wearing gloves but not masks, right? Which was like exactly the opposite of what we should have been doing. But I remember saying, so we're going to carry around the Torah, but please don't kiss it, right? And then, we're doing the Torah reading, and we're all very careful to stay far away from each other. And then I'm reading, right? And there's 2 gabbis, and there's the person who had the aliyah, and the person who just had it, and there's 5 people standing shoulder to shoulder, and I'm saying to myself, I'm gonna die, right? And, and when we shut it down, there's not a lot of guidance, right? I mean, one of the tractates that I did not study in rabbinical school is Masechet Zoom, right? I didn't study Masechet Zoom, right? So, but, most of the things, as far as I'm concerned, and this is a debate within the conservative rabbinate, right? Is that, are the things that we have to do to be on Zoom, are they Torah or rabbinic? Right? If they're Torah, you really can't do them, right? Or if you, or you have to hire a non-Jew to do them for you, right? If they're rabbinic and it's an emergency, you can do them, right? And it's still really an emergency. I mean, people are still afraid to come to shul because of COVID, right? So, from my perspective, and I said this at the time, this is rabbinic. If it was Torah, we'd have a harder time, right? We would have a harder time. But the point is that rabbinic laws are easier to override than Torah laws. And there is a difference, and the system really does make sense, even though I may have given some silly and outlandish examples, but there is an internal logic to the system, and we do have guidance. Okay, whether you follow it or not, that's up to you, but you should know really how the system works. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, Dee.
Are Noahide laws in the same category as these that early on?
No, there are 7 Noahide laws, and that would be another example of something that was considered derived by the rabbis from the Torah. So therefore, they're Torah laws and not rabbinic laws. Yeah.
The concept of the red heifer, a great inconsistency.
How so?
In the sense that washing and saying Tehillim for a corpse is a mitzvah.
Right.
If I do that, then I'm ritually impure. So
Right.
I can do a good deed and end up being ritually impure for doing it.
No, correct, but that's the same thing with the red heifer. I mean, look, no, you raise a good point. So Lloyd's question is that preparing somebody for burial is a mitzvah, right? But I contract impurity from doing this mitzvah, right? Now, that's where we get Pesach Sheni from. Okay, was exactly that men who had prepared a corpse for burial, and now they can't partake of the Paschal sacrifice, and they go to Moses and they say this isn't fair, right? So they institute a second Passover a month later. Now, look, the fact of the matter, I'm just speaking halachically, right? Everybody has corpse impurity right now.
That's right.
Okay, and because we don't have the red heifer, right? And if you've ever been in the same enclosure as a corpse, you have corpse impurity, right? So if you've ever been in a hospital, you have corpse impurity. If you've ever flown to Israel, you have corpse impurity.
Cemetery to visit somebody.
You're right, so we don't worry about it. But if the temple was rebuilt, we have to have the red heifer, but then there is a possibility, there is a possibility that you might have to miss Pesach and make it up a month later. There's absolutely that possibility, right? That's, that's for sure. Okay. All right, let's continue with the Kaddish before Musaf service, page 155 or 428. And then on the next page, we begin the Musaf